And welcome back to 7th Circle Gaming. Today we're going to be discussing the game Unity of Command 2. And we're going to start, as we always do here, with disclosures. The game was purchased some time ago, and the campaign was played on normal, average difficulty, and the game was played without downloadable content or modifications applied. So, we're going to move on now to Immersion. And the game has earned a 4 out of 15 for Immersion. The game world is presented in an isometric view, and the art style is not overly realistic. It's a sort of watercolor cartoon art style. The audio is fairly basic, just rough sound effects, marching boots, and engine noises. The game does present players with tactical puzzles to solve, and there is some agency provided to players in the sense of movements are up to the player to make, and other choices are made up to the player to make, which abilities to use, where to place certain objects. But that's really about it. The game also attempts to immerse players with statistics focus, and there is a significant amount of data in this game for players to analyze if they choose to do so. And that's really where we're going to move on to difficulty, because that's going to touch on one of the notes that we would personally have about the game. The user interface is very complicated. And just looking at the screen on the left, there are a plethora of buttons to click on, to analyze, to look at data, to attempt to optimize. And the tutorial does not do as in-depth a job as players might like to see to explain what all those functions are and how to use them best. So, as far as difficulty, the game has earned a 3 out of 15, mostly because it does have a tutorial that explains some of the functions, and it gives players enough to try to figure out the rest on their own. But this is definitely going to be one of the fail multiple times until you achieve success sort of difficulties things, and so the 3 out of 15 is what the game has earned. So we'll move on to Lasting Appeal. And the game really doesn't seem to have an awful lot of replay value at all. On the other hand, the game has significant amounts of downloadable content, and it is actively supported, or at least it seems to be actively supported by the developers, with additional content. On the other hand, a fair amount of the games throughout all of my playthroughs were essentially just random clicking on things to see what would happen and what the effects would be. Almost like, well, to put it another way, one could have as much fun or as much enjoyment putting random equations into Microsoft Excel as one could seemingly have in involving themselves with this game. The clicking on icons was just that random. So yes, there is a phrase that might be applied to this game: easy to learn but difficult to master. But the facts as they are on the ground is players are not likely to want to put the time in to master this game, especially when there are others available. So, what has the game earned in its final analysis? In the final analysis, the game has earned a 2.6 out of 15. The user interface is seemingly overly complicated. The tutorial explains maybe 1/3 of the possible functions that the game has. In my playthroughs, personally, I got confused between which numbers apply to which units. Now, that might be my own experience with the game, so that is somewhat subjective. We'll caveat it with that. The replay value seemed to be very limited, and there was something of a random number generation aspect to the game where rolling a dice would be a determinant of the results of any sort of combat, as clicking on a unit would be. So, all in all, the average score for the game is 2.6 out of 15. And if you did enjoy this video, if you do like these more objective reviews where we attempt to clarify what we do, why I do things, and what these all mean, drop us a comment, like the video if you did like it, subscribe for more objective video game reviews, more transparency in video game reviewing on YouTube, and that's all I've got for today. Goodbye.